and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. As always, I'm super excited and grateful that you've joined me for today's episode of the show. And this week on the podcast, I'm thrilled to be joined by Mary Bugg. Mary is an accomplished yoga teacher, neuro-muscular therapist, and a reiki master. She's a mom, a wife, a friend, and a sister. And she spent 25 years in the film industry as a producer before changing careers and becoming a teacher. And so she brings all of that experience of film industry production to her teaching. And she understands that we come from different directions, but ultimately we're all aiming for the same outcome, happiness with acceptance. Mary has run multiple trainings and workshops in the Middle East and is one of the owners and studio director at the Path Yoga Studio that's based in Bali. And in this episode of the podcast, Mary shares a bit about her journey as a yoga teacher, what brought her to Bali, and how she became a co-owner in the Path, as well as she shares what it's like to run a business in a foreign country, as well as some of her top tips for marketing your own business and growing a company, and so much more. Mary is truly a wealth of knowledge, and I could have picked her brain all day. She had so much good stuff to share. So whether you are an aspiring yoga studio owner or just a yoga teacher starting out, not sure what you want to do, or somebody who maybe wants to run a business or teach abroad, there is definitely something in this episode for you. So I hope that you enjoy. Without further ado, here is Mary. Welcome to the podcast today, Mary. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Hi, Amanda.
Where are you joining me from?
Hi, I'm in Canggu in Bali in Indonesia.
That's amazing. And from your accent, I'm gathering that's not where you're from originally. Where do you originally come from?
No, I'm British. So I was brought up in London and took a little bit of a journey around the world to end up in Indonesia. I left London in 2006, spent about 8 or 9 years in Spain, and in 2014 ended up in the Middle East in Qatar. But at the beginning of last year, 2023, I came to Indonesia and ended up in Bali.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I'm excited to hear more about that journey and that story. But I did my first teacher training, my 200-hour in Canggu, so definitely has a special place in my heart.
Who was that with?
A Santosha yoga. That's what it's called.
I did it with Santosha as well.
Oh, amazing. In what year?
I think 2017. And we were out on an island. We were in Nusa Lembongan.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I did it in Canggu in 2015 in the spring.
Yeah. Nice.
Awesome. So can we back up and talk a little bit about your yoga story? I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into yoga and then, what inspired you to take that training in 2017.
Wow. So actually, my first experience with yoga was in 1995, 96. I was in my mid-20s and I was struggling at that stage in my life emotionally and not really where I was spiritually. And so I was mid-20s and it was 95, 96. So there really wasn't a lot of information around like we have now with the internet, where at a press of a button or a press of a hashtag, we can pretty much find everything we want. So I was really trying to search for some sense of purpose or meaning in my life. I wasn't feeling very satisfied with the answers that I was finding. And a friend of mine said, why don't you try yoga? A meditation practice can be very useful. And, I certainly had some mental health issues at the time as well, although in those days we didn't call them mental health issues. And being in England, we certainly didn't call them mental health issues. So anyway, I found a yoga class and it was in Southeast London and it was in the back of a gym and all the guys were lifting weights and there were some little old ladies doing something called Iyengar yoga. And it was a 2.5-hour class and they were standing on their heads And, it's funny, I look at them now and think they were little old ladies, but they were probably not much older than I am now. I'm 52. So, um, and there was something definitely unusual and undescribable that happened to me at that stage. And it was clearly the breath. I didn't understand that's what was really happening. I just knew that 2.5 hours was something that took me on a journey of something I hadn't experienced before, although I'd been a ballet dancer. And so I understood somatic movement within my body and how it made me feel, but I definitely felt like I needed something with a bit more meaning to it. And so that's how I found yoga. And at that time, I was working in the film industry. So anytime I sort of had a chance when I wasn't on the set, I'd jump behind the studio and put my mat out and do some sun salutations to kind of move things through my body, and it made me feel good. And like I said, in those days, there really wasn't much information out there to find out about things. So I had this Dorling and Kingsley yoga book that somebody bought for me, which I still have actually. And I'd just sort of look at the poses and the cues and try and pronounce the Sanskrit. And sort of took my practice quite privately and in quite an isolated way. Then a little bit later on, when I'd had my first child actually, and my sister-in-law found a yoga class in the local church hall where we lived in Kent. So my sister-in-law and I would go on a Friday morning again for like 2.5, 3 hours to Iyengar yoga. And then it was twice a week. And it was really, I just really loved how it gave me that sense of presence in myself and shut everything else off from the world around me. And then I was pregnant with my second child, and I continued to practice while I was pregnant in a very safe way. And then when I delivered my second child, I used my pranayama, I used my breath to manage the delivery, and it was a really enjoyable experience doing that. And I'm sure everybody who's ever had a baby is screaming, saying, it's not enjoyable. But I think nature does this wonderful thing of making you forget. And you just kind of get left with this little bundle of flesh that turns up into an amazing human being.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible.
Yeah. I've just realized, oh yeah. And then when I moved to Spain, I took my bag of yoga props with me. I had a bolster and a mat and some blocks and a plank, and I had a girlfriend over there as well who practiced yoga on and off. So we would sort of have some yoga conversations, and I'd practice again whenever I could. And I tell you what, my sister-in-law bought me a video, or maybe it was a DVD, actually. I think it was a DVD in those days, of Sting and Trudy teaching yoga. So that was the only other thing I had. And it was very limited, but it was always something that I felt I could be safe in myself with. And then I moved it to the Middle East. And a yoga studio opened up around the corner from where I lived. That was 2017. And I walked in, and I met the manager, and I said, I'd like to do some yoga classes. And she looked at me and she said, well, you've come to the right place. And she was sort of super friendly and hip and cool. And I started going to those classes, and I went every day to a class. And I just couldn't believe how much yoga had changed in the 20 years since I'd started in my very private, secret practice. And then suddenly there was, sort of 7 or 8 classes a day in this beautiful space with these incredible teachers. And they were really complimentary of me and what I was doing and what I was bringing. And I was made to feel so welcome. And I ended up coming away to Bali and doing a teacher training. And I went back after my teacher training. I sort of had my eat, pray, love moment in Bali. And my husband met me at the airport and looked at me and sort of went, oh, something's happened. You've changed. and I did. I felt very different. And I just knew that this was something that I now wanted to do. I didn't work, I didn't want to work in films anymore, and I just sort of stopped my career there and then. And I pivoted completely. And from a landing back home, I went out and I found wherever I could, I put a class in to teach. I just was so enthralled with this magical experience of finding something that I enjoyed so much after so many years of sort of keeping it secret. Um, I went to the hotels, I went to the schools. I did a kids yoga teacher training because the studio that had opened needed a kids yoga teacher, and I went and did that, and that's sort of how it started, really. And yeah, got to there.
Hey, yoga teachers, I'm just hopping in here to let you know about a great new software option for any boutique studios out there. Offering Tree has added a Studio Lite package to their pricing. This package is for all of the smaller studios out there who need an affordable software package. It comes with all the features of Offering Tree, including a website builder, class and appointment scheduling, payment processing, on-demand content, and live stream capabilities, marketing tools, and so much more. It includes payroll reporting, automations for your intro offers, sending text reminders for classes, advanced reporting to keep an eye on your numbers, and access for up to 3 staff members. All at a very low price, including a discount if you use my partner link. Head on over to offeringtree.com/MBOM to learn more and register for a free trial. Once again, that's offeringtree.com/MBOM to get a little discount and start your free trial. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I'm curious, like, what your path was like getting you to, moving to Canggu and opening or co-opening, co-founding a yoga studio. Like, was a yoga studio always something that you were kind of had an idea that you wanted to do and you were just looking for the right place? Or like, what was that journey like as kind of a newer yoga teacher?
That's a really good question, because what life has taught me is whatever you want in life, you never get. You get what you need. And you never know where the opportunity is going to come or how it's going to present itself. So my background, like I said, was in the film industry. I was in production. So I was responsible for managing large projects, really, to put it into context, managing teams, creating atmosphere, just being very creative. So the yoga studio that I'd started to teach at in my local neighborhood asked me to come in as a manager. And I learned a lot about the wellness industry then. And let me think of how I'm going to choose my words, because I want this to come across not as something that's exclusive or happened just in the country I was in. I believe the humankind is the same the world over. It doesn't sort of matter where you are. These things are always going to present themselves, and it's what you do with the opportunity that really counts, that really matters. So I worked successfully with this studio, and it was basically the only studio really in the city. There were 2 studios, one that had been open for quite a few years and this sort of new one. And then somebody else came to me and asked me to help open another studio with them. So I then left the first studio and I went and opened another one, and that went very well. And then we had COVID, actually. So my film experience made me realize I needed to go online with the yoga studio that would opened immediately. So literally, I think it was the 10th of March 2020, we were about to sort of open the doors to the geographical location. 2013, we were locked down, shut down, and I said we go on Zoom. And we were one of the first studios actually to put the classes on Zoom. We had hundreds of people join us that first night, which was incredible. And I took the membership from sort of 0 to 600 by implementing strategies that I had learned from my previous career in film. And I began to realize that actually yoga is a product. As much as I love it, as much as we train to be in it, it is a business. And I think I had to learn quite quickly that it's not all love and light. If you run your business through love and light, to coin a phrase, it's going to be very difficult. It is a business. And within business, you are going to come across every different kind of character and human being. Like I said, they're the same the world over. And so that was quite a transition and a journey for me in that second experience of being involved in a studio where I had to learn, I might come into life with the good intention, with the best intention, but that doesn't mean everybody around me does. And so you do have to be very aware that this is an initiative to earn money, bills need to be paid, and HR strategies need to be implemented. And so here I was back again into sort of the corporate existence that I desperately wanted to get away from. So then a friend of mine opened another yoga studio in the city, and we talked a lot about how to do that. And she kept her identity, her creativity, and she sort of presented it within the framework of yoga. And she inspired me so much to continue to stay truly connected to my authentic self and not sell out to the corporate, if you like. So there's that little bit I wanted to put in there as a caveat as to the background of why I ended up working in yoga studios as an owner or a manager. So then we come out of COVID, and my son at the time was 17 and wanted to experience school in Bali because Qatar had had quite a brutal lockdown. The kids hadn't been in school for 2 years. And it's sort of a concrete jungle. And we thought the contrast of the real jungle would give him a good experience. So across we came. And I have other investments. I have another business investment in Spain, and I had a little business investment in Qatar as well. So I had a pot of money that I was prepared to use as an investment somehow, but I didn't know how that was going to present it to me in Bali. I was very happy to be open-minded. I was willing to accept anything that came. And I sort of put 2 years of being here to see what would happen until I decided what to do with the money I was prepared to invest. So we were in Bali, my son went to school, and I was approached by one of the very big studios on the island to join their management team. So I did. I joined the management team and started to manage one of the big studios in Canggu. And I have a good friend who's been a teacher in Bali for years, and I would always go to his classes when I visited Bali. And he had a yoga studio as well with some investment behind him. So he was sort of teaching at this studio and trying to build it as the face of the studio. I would meet him for sort of coffee and catch-ups and discussions of what it's like to be a studio manager and, the nuts and bolts of it. And I'll have a conversation with him one day in June of 2023. And he said, we're looking for another investor. How would you feel to come in with the expertise you have of being in studios before? And I loved the little place that he was working with. And I just said, yes. Something inside of me just said, yes. There was no two ways about it. And this is why I don't want to make my journey too nuanced. It's about when an opportunity comes your way, knowing what your limitations are, what your abilities are, and what you can bring to the game. Now, I've been going to this little studio, like I said, for a few months since living in Bali, and it's really beautiful. And what they'd put together and done with the little experience that they had, I felt was truly incredible. And I knew that if I could come in, I would be able to take it to the next level because I was prepared to bring an edge of the need of corporate organization, the understanding of marketing, which is, yes, there's a pertinence to it in Bali on an island. I'd learnt a pertinence to marketing in Qatar, in Doha, and also an understanding of the international platform and how we sort of function globally when we are looking for offerings and products. So I looked at the studio, I met with the investors, I had more conversations with my friend who's the teacher, and we came to an agreement, and I realized this is the right place for me to be. Now, you asked about how the studio came to be there as well. That little story came out of COVID as well. There was another business in that location that the investors owned. And that business wasn't working anymore because of COVID. So they knocked it down and they built a yoga studio, but they didn't know anything about yoga, except they have incredibly good taste. The aesthetics are beautiful and they are pretty smart businessmen. And so they knew they were missing this sort of one link in the chain of somebody that understood everything about the background of the yoga business. And so I was brought in. Now, when I looked at the studio, I understand in how I've worked before with studios is that your shop window is your scheduled classes, your studio classes. You can start to, and that's going to pay to keep the lights on. That's going to pay your electricity. It's going to pay your teachers. It's going to give you a bit of contingency. It's a lot of hustling. It's hard work, but you can do it. Now, to get a little bit of profit going, you need to put in some workshops and some short trainings so that you can start to encourage the students who are in your classes to come through into a bigger experience and get a bit more of a deeper understanding of their practice and a bit of education. Once they enjoy their workshops and their little trainings, they might start to believe in themselves that they could maybe come to a yoga teacher training, maybe become a yoga teacher themselves. So I also knew I needed to put a yoga teacher training in. And that was the big product in the business model that I was looking at when I saw the studio. Is running a studio in Bali any different from running a studio in other countries? In my limited experience, I don't believe it is. I believe if you understand your market, if you understand who's coming to your studio and why they're coming to your studio, you will succeed and achieve sort of wherever you are. So let me put that into context. In Bali, we have two very different markets. We have a local market and we have an international market. And it's a transient market. So we've got people coming in for short, medium, and long-term periods of time. We've got holiday makers, tourists coming in. We've got people coming in on a 60-day visa, a 3-month visa. We've got people on investment kitas, so they're here for a year or 2 years. Working kitas, they're here for a year or 2 years. So we've got a real spectrum of opportunity of client. But when you have a teacher training in a destination location, for example, like Bali, you're now opening up a whole other revenue stream and who you can attract into the studio. You can now start to attract people to fly into the island specifically for you to come to your studio for a month teacher training. So this is where you have to understand all your markets, even if you're running a teacher training in a local studio. Again, you need to understand your market. What time do they have available? What finances do they have available? What would they potentially be doing with the training after they've done it with you? Are you able to offer them classes in your studio? Are you able to offer them contacts and support after their training to achieve work if that's what they want? So I think on those levels, running a studio is pretty much the same the world over. But if you want to know exactly what it's like running a studio in Bali, we are living in a jungle. It's a beautiful tropical island. You can sit on the beach and drink coconuts. But at the end of the day, I'm running a yoga studio in a jungle. And that means that
monkeys, storms.
Storms at any time, losing electricity at any time, and just, I mean, legally, for the most part, my staff are Balinese. I have to employ local Balinese to keep the balance correct. And they are just amazing people. And I do get terribly distracted by just having fun with them instead of really getting into the nuts and the bolts of the business. But what it means is that we have Westerners that come to the studio expecting the Western delivery of what they have in their Western yoga studios. And Bali Island time just isn't like that all the time. So there is a different kind of work you have to do to make sure that all those little pieces of attention to detail are kept up with, so that the students see the difference in the studio that that I'm offering. And I think when I looked around at the market of the studios around in the local area, I realized I had to do something else that would sort of set us aside. And so much feedback that I get of people that come to the studio are how beautiful it is, how tranquil it is. Outside the gates, you've got scooters zooming backwards and forwards. Maybe there's construction going on, there's dogs barking, but you come into the little oasis of the path, and it's like a little mini jungle of itself. We have a beautiful indoor chalet that's fully air conditioned, which again is unusual to find in Bali. So they know the local people that, not local people, but people that live on the island, if they want to have a cooler experience, they can come, and they've got an air conditioned space to practice in. It's clean, it's got beautiful new and aesthetic props within the studio. I bought a few ideas over from the other studios I'd been working in and started to implement them in this studio. And I think in any sort of city or market, you can become very set in your ways, and one of the things I did as an example is to celebrate the year of this studio being open, although I'd only had part of it for 6 months. I offered free classes, and nobody around us ever offers free classes. So I put free classes in, and that just brought people through the door, because my biggest struggle as well is to get the optics out there so people know that where we are locally. Google Maps is fine and people are finding us now, but that's always the way, if you're in a new location and you're a tourist and you're visiting and you're following Google Maps and you've got a driver bringing you, just to find it in itself is a challenge. So to do a free class really encouraged people through the door, which was great.
That's I just wanted to comment on that quick, Mary, if I can. It's so interesting to hear that difference with like the market in Indonesia and in Bali specifically versus like, I come from Canada. I've taught Canada, US, and then Mexico and a lot of places online where it's like, I almost feel like when I'm working with clients in studios, I'm like, we need to like pull back the free stuff, like you need to charge for your stuff, like such a different way of looking at things, right? Such a different market, which comes back to the point that you said about like really knowing your people, knowing your market. It's not necessarily that being in a foreign industry is harder. It's just understanding that industry. So just an interesting thing I wanted to point out.
That is really interesting for me to hear as well, in your experience where people have given away things too much, and maybe that is the confusion between the love and light and the corporate. It's really finding that sweet spot of balance. I do believe there's gifts for everyone. I don't believe in competition within the industry. I believe in collaboration. I think if we collaborate, then we all come up together. If we compete, there's one winner, everyone else loses. And I don't feel that that's true within the principles of what we teach. So I do try and run the business from sort of guidance through the yamas and the niyamas when I'm not sure what I do. I look at, if I have a dead space in the schedule, if I have a class that isn't working, for example, the gift is that I'm the studio owner, so I can go in and teach that class for free. I don't have to ask other teachers to come in and teach a class. So I had a Wednesday morning at 10:15, for example, that was just a dead class. Nobody was coming. I taught that class as a free class. Word got round pretty quickly, and we had full classes week after week. So that told me that people were talking about the studio, because I didn't really advertise that massively that it was a free class, but I realized a few things. People talk about the studio. If people are in other studios doing yoga, then I need to find out why they're not in my studio doing yoga. If I offer it free, they came. They liked me as a teacher because they kept coming back. So that's useful to know. And was it the right kind of class in that slot at that time? Yes, it was. And I think these are all issues that will come up with studio managers all over the world when you have a class that doesn't really work. Is it the teacher? Is it the time? Is it the style of class that it is? Or if you can just throw it in free for a few weeks, maybe a month, test it out, see why it's not working, and see if they'll come back. That class is now a paid class, and it's pretty well attended. I'm happy with the numbers that it shows on the schedule. Other teachers have now asked me if they're having a struggle with a class, could they make it a free class? I immediately didn't say yes because it becomes too, like, I think this is what you've just illustrated. It then becomes too easy to keep offering the free things because people are coming. So I think I understand what you're saying there now. That makes sense. What did happen, Amanda, that I'll tell you about is I did do the teacher training in October of last year. I started to write the teacher training, submitted it to Yoga Alliance on November the 3rd, and I was approved in January as a registered yoga centre. And we are starting our teacher training on the 1st of February with a sold out course. So that has been absolutely phenomenal that we have gone from, again, zero to hero and taken the studio to the next level within 4 months.
Congrats. That's amazing. That's incredible what you've been able to do.
It takes a village. It's definitely been a team effort. I couldn't have done it without the team, the teachers supporting me, backing me up, everybody that's worked on everything. And I learned, I just kept very focused on what I was doing. I tried not to get distracted by what other people were telling me was going on in other studios. Again, it comes back to competition. I believe that if you have something that somebody wants, they'll come in and get it with you. There was an amazing film I watched years ago, actually, with Kevin Costner called Field of Dreams. And one of the lines in that film is, if you build it, he will come. And I have done that my whole career with everything I've needed to do. If you build it, he will come. If you do what they want, they will come. When you do what you want, they generally don't come. If you do what they want, they will come. And that's what I've always kind of used as a little bit of a mantra. And I was given a great piece of advice by a woman in business that I have a good relationship with. She said, stay race horse focused on the outcome that you want. And I suppose we call this intention setting and manifestation. And that's what I've always done as well. Race horse focused on the outcome that I've wanted, not got distracted by even negative chatter in my own head and worries of self-doubt, but just kept moving forward. Pray, but move your feet. Just keep doing what you believe will work for the market if you know the market. Because there's only so many types of people in this world, and I come across types of people like me all the time. So I know they're out there. I've just got to let them know that we're here. And I try and craft the schedule for my teachers like that as well, so that I've got teachers of different types, different flavors, different energies, so that all those types of those people will find those kind of teachers with me and come to me. It's got to be a whole spectrum of ice cream flavors, if you like, rather than just vanilla, just vinyasa.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much good stuff in there. And it's just really inspiring to hear this story, Mary, because I feel like so much of like pandemic days and pandemic time was like businesses opened and then they had to shut down, or businesses that were open for years and years, unfortunately, had to close their doors. And it's been really inspiring to hear, stories on my podcast from, I mean, yours included, and from other people who have opened businesses or taken their businesses and continue to see them thrive. And it just like gives me hope that, this industry isn't like dying out. And I don't mean the yoga industry, because I feel like, it's $1 billion industry. Everyone kind of knows that. But I feel like studios, especially, because so much stuff is online now. And sure, we can do online within our studio spaces. I think that's a beautiful option for our students. But I really do feel like yoga studios can be like the heart of a community. And I know for me, when I travel to a place, it's like I always want to practice at a yoga studio. And if there is no yoga studios, that's like a sad thing to think about. So I just love hearing, the success and growth, and how you stepping into working with the path has been able to really help them flourish and grow in this tiny little town that has so many people.
Mm. Do you know, I think also, Amanda, there has been a moment in time for women. Um, and like I said, I'm 52, maybe women of a certain age or a certain generation, where we have so many skills from being wives, probably, from being mothers, probably, definitely from being daughters of another generation, and we're kind of really stepping into our own recognition and our own power and kind of going, actually, we have a lot to offer, and honestly, so many of the skills that I use on a daily basis come from my parenting skills rather than my business acumens. um,
Not surprising to hear that. I'm new in motherhood because my daughter's just about 2, but it's like, man,
oh
it's a
yeah,
trip.
that's
You learn
amazing.
so much.
I think there's been a big influence as well for women moving forward. And I know women supporting women is like a big mantra, but it can often turn into women taking each other down, which has been a very unpleasant experience in some ways. And I really don't want that to happen. And I'm incredibly lucky that I have some very good um, girlfriends of my age. And of course, when we get to this age, we sort of have a certain profile within our life and we've reached a certain level. And so we're able to communicate with each other and really support each other and understand how we bring each other up, working in leadership, working in entrepreneurship, supporting the younger women that are coming up and show them exactly how you can do this and have them believe that there is enough for everybody. You don't have to get resentful. You don't have to panic. You can give a little bit of yourself for free because you've got so much of yourself. If it is you that's giving it, if it's coming from you, then there's this endless fountain of knowledge and energy and abundance that sort of carries on. It's when you try and take it from someone else and deliver it, then that's when you run out. And so really, really connecting to yourself. And I think that's what I was trying to tell you about all my years of secretly, privately practicing my yoga is I never ran out. It was always in me. And so now I'm surrounded by amazing teachers and education and opportunity and information at my fingertips. It's just never running out for me. I've got so much to give. And honestly, the more I give, the more I get back. And it really is a mindset of belief and understanding. If you're going to really practice yoga and really teach yoga, then really live what you believe in the philosophy. And I think that's been a huge part for me as well in the business is not connecting so much to the corporate part, although I have been able to use a lot of those skills in the success of the business, but also understanding, there's something we teach here and we really must believe it rather than saying, look how good I am because I'm doing this, but you can't have any of it. And I've come across women who have found that difficult to believe in me, that I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm not upset at anything you've done. Really, I want the best for you. And you cannot go against the flow if the flow isn't right. As you said, those businesses in COVID, when we all desperately try to keep things going, if we can be flexible enough to pivot in a way that serves us and serves what we're doing, then we will find success. I am on the island, I am running the studio, but actually the end of the story is my son left school, left the island and went back to the Middle East with my husband, and my other child left London and went back to the Middle East. So now my whole family is in the Middle East and I'm here on my own.
That's a challenging situation for sure, not to have your family there.
Right. So another pivot had to happen because I certainly don't want to live here without my family who, there was initial plan where everybody would transition over here. And now for other work reasons for my husband, he's still in the Middle East. And now my other child from London is in the Middle East and they are successfully working there. And my son's not coming back. So I'm like, right, we need another pivot here. What do I do? And of course, I can continue to run the business remotely because I will now be working on the international platform to market the teacher trainings. And my team here on the ground in Bali will work on local operations. So now we've naturally found another growth in the business where we can build the teacher training product into something perhaps more ambitious than we initially thought.
Wow, I love that. And I feel like that's just like a testament to this like time that we're living in, this digital age we're living in, which is like how incredible is it that you don't have to just abandon this project and you don't have to leave. You don't have to pick between like something you're passionate about and being with your family. And I feel like, family almost always comes first in those regards, but it's hard, especially I think as like a wife, as a mother. It's like, our kids, our families, they always come first for us. And then it's like sometimes we're just forced to like give up on the things that we're excited about, or tuck them away until it feels like a better chapter when our children need us less or our partners need us less. But like how beautiful that you are able to show up for both. Like that's amazing.
I think it's a moment in time, like you absolutely say, communication tools have given us opportunities to do this. And I, I'm incredibly lucky with my husband. He's always allowed me sort of the freedom of creativity to explore what it is that makes me happy. And so subsequently for the children to see their father giving me freedom and support, that hands down to them. My son understands how important it is to support women, and he's going to be an amazing husband one day by seeing this example. And my other child is transgender, and they are able to see how there is love and acceptance in all choices. And I think that gives them courage and bravery to move through their journey with their truth and authenticity, to see their 52-year-old mom go off on a tropical island and run a business is kind of against convention. And I hope that gives them power as well to make the choices they need to make in life.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And so I'm curious, we just have a few minutes left, Mary. I'm curious, we've talked so much about this already, but are there any other like tips you want to leave people with who want to start a studio? Maybe any like tips for marketing your business, building a community, business lessons, anything like that?
Don't underestimate the power of marketing. Your marketing plan is your business development. Your business model needs to come out in your marketing plan. These two things work so intrinsically together. It's the hardest thing to spend the amount of money on marketing that you need to spend to reap the reward that you will need to get. It doesn't matter how good you are, if they don't know you're there, they are not going to come. So marketing is really, really important. How you communicate what you want to communicate is really important. Remember who you're talking to. They want to know that you understand them. You don't want them to understand you. You want to let them know that you understand them and that you have got what they want, what they need. And also your marketing needs to go through every possible channel. And it absolutely amazed me as I've been understanding and learning more about running my businesses, how many different channels there are that people will find me through. And there's great tools to automate everything. It can become very overwhelming to start with, but use YouTube, use all the free tutorials that are out there to learn the marketing tools that can make your business so much more successful. Post on Instagram, post on TikTok, post on LinkedIn, post on Pinterest. Pinterest is one of the largest search engines in North America. ChatGPT, Bing. Somebody's coming from Mexico actually to use my studio in September. And I asked him how he found us. And he said he put into ChatGPT the top 5 yoga studios in Bali, and the path came up.
That's amazing. I love that.
It's amazing. He said, you are in a place you don't even know exists yet. And this is the other thing that I think is really important for marketing. Marketing is transitioning into something we can't even possibly understand yet. AI and ChatGPT are out there in a way we won't even realize. Just like we didn't realize the explosion of Instagram and social media, ChatGPT is the next big thing. Don't be afraid to involve it in your business if you want to be a success. How you do that, I don't know. Come back and ask me in a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I feel like ChatGPT is a really amazing tool, but also very scary sometimes. I'm like, how do you know all these things? It's so smart. But no, I really love what you're talking about with marketing, because I really do feel like you could be like the best yoga teacher and you could have, you know, the best presence and the best cueing and the best thing to say. But it's like, if people don't know you exist, they can't experience that, right? So I kind of think of like yoga business and the tools of marketing as kind of like this key to actually providing your services to people. And I think it's so important for us to learn the tools of marketing and to, integrate what feels good for us in a heart-centered way into our businesses, because that's how we actually serve. Like so many yoga teachers are like, I'm not here to make millions of dollars. I just want to be of service. And it's like, that's amazing. I hear that, but you still have to tell people you exist. People still have to know you exist, even if you don't want to make millions. Like it doesn't matter how much money you want to make, even if you want to make $1 or even if you want to offer free classes to people, people still have to know about you to be able to show up. So I really love that point. I feel really aligned with that.
Yeah. Wow. I've loved talking to you, Amanda.
Yeah, this is incredible. And I'm curious, how long are you going to be in Bali for? When are you heading back to the Middle East? I know you said that you have a teacher training coming up in February, so probably staying in Bali for a little while longer.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that I've learned is don't tell God your plans. He laughs. So I will be here until um, March when our teacher training finishes. And then I just have some very loose plans over 2024, sorry, to work with the studio on bringing the international platform back up. And we will be bringing in a hybrid teacher training. And again, understand your market. I spoke to so many leads who wanted to come for a teacher training, but can't come for 4 weeks. So we're going to put a hybrid training in. We're going to make a recorded online material so that students can do half of the training online. And then for 2 weeks, they come to Bali and they do 2 weeks with us at the studio. And that now opens the door and makes it so much more accessible for our niche. Our niche tends to be early 30s, mid 30s to late 30s, middle management, people looking for a pivot, people looking for a transition. They probably can't quite give 4 weeks out of their work commitments, but they can give 2 weeks. So this is something else that I found in the business, which is what I mean. Always look for the opportunities. You may listen to my story and think that I was offered very specific opportunities, but everybody is offered opportunities. It's learning how to see them, feel into them, listen them, pivot, execute them, have courage.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's really wonderful because I think, like I said at the beginning, I did my teacher training over there, and I think I was in a very specific chapter of life when going to Bali for, 4.5 weeks worked for me. I was able to take that time off work because I was working in retail. I, you know, was dating my now husband at the time, but we weren't married. We didn't have a child, and I feel like thinking about that now, it's like that just feels so unreachable for me in this current chapter. And I love the idea of having a hybrid where you can reach people that are, maybe have full-time jobs or businesses that they can't step away from, or maybe, their mothers or fathers who have children. And, 2 weeks is a lot more doable to solo parent, or maybe for that second parent to come over with their kids, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really wonderful. And I'm curious for anyone who wants to, I mean, I guess two things. One, if they're going to Bali and they want to go practice, or maybe they're looking for a teacher training program, where can they find info about the path? And then also, where can they find you if they're looking to just connect with you, Mary?
Yeah, I'm so happy if anybody wants to connect with me. Like I said, I'm so willing to offer support and help and guidance for anyone trying to do this. So my name's Mary Bugg. You can find me on Instagram under Abundance Therapies. That's my Instagram handle. Um, and you can find the Yoga Path Yoga Center Bali on our website, on our Instagram, on our Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest is coming soon. So all of those options and everything you need to know about us will be on our website, www.thepathyogacentre.com, I think.
Yeah, no, that's right. I pulled it up. And it's CENTER for anyone who's spelling center. That's amazing. I'll make sure there's links to all of that in the show notes so that people can check you out and learn and follow along. And if anyone's looking for a teacher training, I can definitely vouch for going to Bali is a super, super beautiful, wonderful, immersive experience and whatnot. So Yeah, thank you so much for this. You've just shared so much goodness. I feel like with every little story you told, there was a little piece of wisdom and golden nuggets just sprinkled throughout everything you had to share. So really, really grateful for this conversation.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Amanda. Thank you.
All right, yoga teachers, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Mary Bugg. Make sure you go check her out and also check out The Path. I was looking at their website and it's just making me really, really, really want to go back to Bali. So hopefully I'll get to go visit at some point in the future. And of course, a big thank you to Offering Tree for sponsoring this episode of the show. You guys make sure you go check them out, offeringtree.com/MBOM. And of course, a big thank you to you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for sharing and all that good stuff. I truly couldn't do it without you guys. All right, that's all from me. I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.